on a very busy road that runs between several towns. It's just a 2-lane road, but it's a very busy road, and you will hear the traffic. You will hear the traffic. Anyway, there's a town that way called Kingstree, South Carolina. Kingstree was founded by King George, I think it was, to be a town inside the interior of South Carolina to encourage settlement. There were 9 to 13, I don't remember, I think it was 9 towns that he wanted to plant in the interior of South Carolina to encourage settlement there. That's Kingstree that way. Kingstree has an old Presbyterian church. They don't have an old Presbyterian church anymore, but the graveyard is still there. Now, several miles that way, there used to be a community called Salem. There's a Presbyterian church there called Salem Black River Church with the old cemetery. Now that one was one of my first, no, that was the first video I made with church cemeteries, and I'll post a link down in the description. So between these two churches, the one in Kingstree was founded, I don't know when it was founded, to be honest with you. It was earlier than this one though. Now the people from Kingstree, some of them come up this way, up what's called the Black River, and then settled in this town, it wasn't even a town, just a community called Salem. They built a church there. Now, if I remember correctly, it was built mid-1840s, if I remember correctly. So you had a Presbyterian church over there, you had a Presbyterian church over there, each one about 15 miles from here. So then in 1801, this church was not built, but it was founded. In other words, the congregation started in 1801. The name of this church is called Midway, because midway between that church and midway between that church. Now, even though it was founded in 1801, it had a building, and then another building, and this building. Now, this building is in great shape. And most of my old churches I do, they don't have active congregations, or they're barely active. They just meet at the church once a month or something for tradition's sake. But this church is an active church. It's very well kept. I'm going to lean it back this way, go back that way, and hopefully you're not blinded by the light. Okay. Now the graveyard is supposed to have 2 Revolutionary War soldiers. One of them was joined at age of 16 and joined up with Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox. And he was one of the ruling elders of this church. He founded this church, was a ruling elder for 20 years. When we find hopefully we'll find his grave marker. I'm sure his story will be on there, I would hope. And I just hope that the gate's not locked. This is the cemetery, and yes, the gate is unlocked. What the church looks like from the graveyard. It's really nice, like I said, really nice and well kept up church. It's an active congregation. The first stone that caught my attention says, in memory of M.J. Burgess, wife of W.R. Burgess, born November 29th, 1817, died January 13th, 1863. And this is what got my curiosity right here. They lived together in life and were not separated in death. That makes me think that the two died on the same day or died together. Sure enough, just as I thought, right next to her, actually, there's a stone. In memory of W.R. Burgess, born December 1st, 1863. Died January 12th, which was the day before his wife died, 1863. From 1802 to 1863, about 61 years old. Unless there's something written up in a family tree, I doubt very seriously I'll be able to find out what happened to this couple. But I will research it, and if I find out, I'll leave it down below in the comments.
Don't forget to give it a thumbs up.
Bearden is the family name. James Edward, born in 1847 and died in 1932. Helen Mazon, born in 1860 and died in 1943. I love a stone that gives all kind of good information. And this one right here says that the children of Jim, Ned, and Ellen Reardon were nine of them. And it has them listed in the order of their death. And they start with the one that was born in 1886, that died in 1887. And then it goes on to the last one who died in, oh wow, lived to be very, very old. Born in 1899 and died in 1993. 9 of them. Now this one is very rare to see. There are a handful in the old Quaker cemetery in Camden, South Carolina, but this one is unmarked, which was something the Quakers did. They used to not mark the graves. And you can tell this is very old by the very fact that the brick that are laid in a pile, basically, is weathered and worn greatly. Don't know how good you can see this. It does look like my shadow's in the way, so let me step back and read this to you. This was a young preacher in memory of Reverend Elmore Kinder, born May 31st, 1830. Died June 26, 1856. Age 26 years and 26 days, it looks like. He had received a collegiate, in other words, he went to college, education, and completed a 3 years course in theological seminary in Columbia. That'd be Columbia, South Carolina. By the way, that seminary is still there. And was licensed to preach at the age, to preach the gospel, April 8th, 1856. You see, he died June 26, 1856, April, May. So he got that license for two months. By the way, I'm still looking for the markers of the Revolutionary War soldiers, but look what I spy over here. I don't know if you can see it or not. I'm gonna go there in a minute. I know you'll see it then. 2 more brick inlaid tombs. Try to get you close. There's the brick. There's the brick. It's behind here. You can't really see it that well, but I want to read this. By the way, I don't know if you can tell or not, I'm kind of giving you a panoramic view here. These two are not laid out straight like the others are. They're laid out going this way at a definite angle. And I don't know why. So far, I've not found any others like that. How about that? Anyway, let me read this to you. Samuel McBride Weatherspoon. Now, let's slow down a minute. The McBrides were instrumental in starting the Presbyterian church down at Salem Black River. As a matter of fact, I know a whole lot about the McBride family. I've done a good deal of research on the McBride family because at one time I lived on a house that was on their land that had belonged to one of their daughters a little bit later in their generations. It's a very, very neat story, and one day I'll tell it. Samuel McBride Weatherspoon. By the way, Weatherspoon is also one of the oldest names in this area. Born January 8th, 1793. Died February 10th, 1825. So he was kind of young. He was in his, what, 30s, I guess, 25? Yeah, early 30s, as a matter of fact. His daughter, his daughter's also buried here. Born August 5th, Sarah, that'd be Sarah Dobbin. Born August 5th, 1817, and died April 25th, 1827. Another, I mean, she was only 10 years old when she died, but she died 2 years later than him, so they didn't die at the same time. You know, they could have died from the same thing. You know, disease was rampant at that time. Do you see what I mean about how this is angled differently than the rest of the cemetery? I don't know why. He died 1825. It could very well be he was the first one buried here. That might be the oldest grave right there, because the Revolutionary War soldiers I'm looking for, I think they died a little bit later. I don't know that.
And don't forget to subscribe.
I'm still looking for the Revolutionary War soldiers. I would hope or think they'd have a historical plaque letting me know that I had found them. It's a very neatly laid out cemetery, so I'm hoping it's easy to find, or they are easy to find. Okay, we have here what appears to be 3 brothers who died during the Civil War. They were all privates. Eli A. Fleming, who died in 1861. Henry F. Fleming, who died in 1863, 2 years later. And then let me scoot down here a little bit. Samuel W. Fleming, who died in 1865. They died 2 years apart. August 16th, that one right there, August 16th, 1861. So he pretty well died at the beginning of the Civil War. I found another one. There's almost as many here as there is at the Quaker Cemetery where Quakers are that do this with the bricks. It's a small one, no doubt a child. No way that's going to be figured out right there. I have looked all over the cemetery for those 2 Revolutionary War soldiers. Now, I didn't take their names down. That probably would have been helpful if I did, but I assumed there would be plaques that would mark their graves. And of course, I am assuming they're in a marked grave, and they might not even be true. But I did find some interesting graves. And if I find out where they're buried, I'll come out here and do a real quick one on where they're located also. See how pretty that church is? I just love that it's so old. 1840, I think is when he said it was built. 1850, it's 1850. Is an active congregation. Something I did notice when I was looking at the oldest tombstones is that even though the cemetery goes this way and that way, most of the oldest ones are pretty center of the cemetery, of the church.